Right, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Drive Time. It is time for episode 7, and it's again another personal friend of mine. I say personal; he probably says no. Don't like the guy
Yeah,
at
I'll
all.
give you that. I'll give you that.
Of course, I am joined by Jack Oliphant. Episode 7 here of Drive Time. It's series 2, and of course, Jack we know very well from handball. Well, for those of you who are not into handball, me and Jack did a handball together. But Jack Oliphant, you are heavily involved in motorsport as well. And I'm sure most people already know who you are and what you do in motorsport. But for those who don't know you, Jack, so well, what is your involvement in motorsport?
The name Oliphant's been around in motorsport for quite some time in Britain, anyway. And obviously, I now am a commentator, like your good self, Ian. But I did race in Ginettas between 2015 and 2019. I was in the Ginetta Racing Drivers Club, GRDC as it was called.
Yeah.
Did the G40 Cup, which is like the next progression, and then did a season which went fairly badly in 2019 in the G55 Super Cup. Which obviously supported the British touring cars. And if anybody out there is wondering where you might have heard my second name from, obviously my brother was a touring car driver for a small amount of time as well. Obviously not anymore. So yeah, my sort of role in motorsport now is as a commentator. I haven't done anything massive yet, but a few sort of TCR guest rounds and Civic Cups and stuff like that as well. So yeah, here, there and everywhere, and trying to get into that sort of space in the industry.
You do quite a lot of commentary, don't you, in the main box at, say, Brands Hatch, don't you? The circuit commentary and things like that. I'm sure people sort of recognise your dulcet tone. So you're very au fait then with the club racing scene here in the UK from a driving perspective and, of course, commentator. So heading into 2023, Jack, in your opinion, how strong do you feel club racing is in the UK heading into this season?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, we've never been that massively involved with club racing as a family because, my involvement was with the G40 Cup, with Ginetta, basically, which always was on the British GT or the British touring car packages. So the sort of club racing scene I never really got involved with until I became a commentator. And then all of a sudden I realized it's like a completely different universe. There's so many people getting involved with it. And things like the Caterhams, the MX-5s, the Fiesta Juniors, they're absolutely massive. The Fun Cup's brilliant. Basically, anything that the BRSCC or 750 Motor Club touches, or any of those sort of things, they're brilliant. And they're a much better atmosphere, in my opinion, than the stuff that I've necessarily done. It's not to say that I hated my atmosphere or I hated the time, but it was very, very competitive. Whereas the club racing scene, from what I've experienced from the outside, seems to strike a really good balance between being competitive, but also being sort of very inclusive. You know, it's people who have barbecues out the back of their pop-up awnings and stuff like that. It's fantastic, and it's looking like it's going to be really strong again in 2023.
I think people are trying to achieve different things in club racing, aren't they? The environment you're in with Ginettas and, of course, your brother with British touring cars, it's insular, isn't it? In a sense of it's competitive in we have to win. It's a business side of things, whereas a lot of club racing is recreational, shall we say. People still want to win, don't get me wrong, and it can be very, very competitive. I imagine as soon as those lights go out, everybody will say, I'm just here to have a good time. As soon as the lights go out, they're like that. I've got to win. But it is that makes for that sort of atmosphere in the paddock, doesn't it? A bit more relaxed, which is quite nice. So let's have a look then at the elite side of motorsport, shall we? We're going from the club race, which is the lifeblood of motorsport, especially here in the UK. Let's go to the elite. Let's look at the very, very top. And I want to know your opinion on Formula One, Formula E, IndyCar, NASCAR, WRC. There's plenty of others as well. I'm talking about the elite, and we'll include touring cars in this as well because it's a big series. So let's include British touring cars because it's a big series. Which, in your opinion, offers the best all-round value for fans, sponsors, and career prospects? Not just from a driver's point of view, from mechanics, from media side of things as well, Jack. And for sponsors, we're not just talking about chucking a sticker on a car. And your brother, I know, Tom, he has a company that involves this type of thing, doesn't it? So all-round value, which do you, if you were going to move into elite sport to promote your business or get involved or work in, which is the best one that you think I've got a real shot here?
Well, for me personally, obviously a bit of an affiliation with the touring cars, and I know a lot more about the sponsorship behind that sort of scene. I know the media that's behind that sort of scene, so I'd feel more comfortable going and saying my aspirations would be to go into there. But I have to say, I think all the ones that you've got listed at the bottom of the screen have their own strengths. I mean, if you're talking about sponsorship, and you're talking about the top echelon, the FTSE 100 companies, and obviously F1 is going to be where you're getting the most amount of viewers, pupils looking at you and everything, especially with their deal with Netflix and everything like that. But actually,
equate to value though. Does that necessarily equate to value if it's not the right audience? Would you get more from, say, World? Because you'd get more for your money, surely, by putting it into World Endurance. I'm not saying it's wrong. This is just, you're right.
Yeah.
Fortune 500 company, Formula One's probably a closed book. You've got £1 million to spend. Formula One, you're probably not going to get too much for that.
No, and I think it depends on your company and who you're trying to attract as well. Obviously, Petronas aren't going to sell they don't have anything to sell to the general customer, the general consumer, like who's walking down the street going to Tesco, do they? So if that's who you're aiming for, then Formula One budgets are completely just, you might as well not bother. Whereas something like the BTCC, they sort of try, and that's a bit more sort of ground level style sponsorship, which it's a lot less money, but you get a lot of people who are very religious about following that kind of motorsport. That might be where you sort of end up. But to me, I haven't got much experience in WEC or WRC. I couldn't tell you what sort of the massive benefits of sponsorship for them, but I have written in my undergrad, I wrote a dissertation on fan engagement on motorsport.
Really?
I did it about the BTCC. And I won't bore you with everything that I found, but actually what I found is the best fan engagement back when I did it in 2018 was actually Formula E, because their ability to have their races in the city centre where everybody can get to, basically. They have all the different sort of gimmicks where you can vote for your favorite driver and they get extra boosts through the day. That's a brilliant way. It sort of makes the motorsport, in my opinion, a little bit
gimmicky, but I can see why they're trying it. Yeah.
But the engagement you get from it is brilliant.
Mario Kart, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah,
and I think
they
even introduced the gates, didn't they? Where if you go around the outside of the corner, you hit all 3 gates, you get an extra bit of boost on
that. Was the power thing. You had to do it twice as well. I don't know. I haven't watched any of this season, so I don't know if the rules have changed a little bit. But I remember watching that and just thinking, it does spice things up though, because it makes it more of a tactical game. But sometimes I just think with that, look, we're here to race, and drivers just want to race without having to think, all right, I'm going to have to take a big diversion because the rules tell me to. But
that's the thing. I think, but for fans, a lot of sort of, especially younger fans, they sort of really enjoyed that aspect of the little gimmicks here, there, and everywhere. And you'll probably find, no disrespect to the Formula E drivers, but you find that a lot of drivers in the Formula E have done it in F1 as well, and maybe haven't quite made it. So, they've sort of tried to go for that ultimate echelon of racing, and you can say what you want about it being scripted or being rigged these days. But they sort of fall into Formula E where, it's a little bit gimmicky, but the competitive nature is still there. But in terms of a fan engagement, Formula E is brilliant. And so is NASCAR, actually. I've been
interesting.
Covering a NASCAR event over the Wednesdays, and that's awesome. I haven't done it in real life, but I've done it on the sim, so I've watched real life stuff as a preparation. My God, it's a different world. It's incredible the sort of stuff they get up to.
Yeah. Right, you mentioned Formula E there. Let's talk, because obviously there's the whole EV thing at the minute. I'm not saying that's the future. I don't know what is the future. Personally, I'm not so sure it is, but I want to know what your opinion is. How do you think motorsport's going to look in 5 to 10 years, from the club racing level right to the very top, as an overview? Where are we going, Jack?
It's difficult to say, really. I know one of my commentary friends, Andy McEwen, he commentates on sort of almost like driverless cars going round the circuit, and they go around Buxton, and there's people at the home base programming this car to go around it as quickly as possible and everything like that, but they're not allowed on circuit together, so they're just hot lapping. To me, it sounds extremely boring. So I'm hoping it doesn't go down that route. I think there's always should be a driver involved. The EV, I don't know. I sort of get the impression it's a little bit of peer pressure, to be honest, the whole EV route, because obviously there's so many manufacturers now making EV cars, like for the general consumer, like you and me, which I personally don't think is necessarily the long-term future. Either it might be our future in 5 to 10 years. That might be what we're looking at. But in terms of 20 years, I'd hope there's another development with synthetic fuels or something like that. But I can understand everybody's worry about motorsport, British motorsport, getting a lot quieter at a racetrack all of a sudden. Doesn't necessarily mean the racing won't be as good, but there will be slightly less drama about it, slightly less theatrical.
So a lot of people have said historics are going to make a comeback. Historic racing is going to be, because people are going to want that noise again. And I think different fuels, synthetic fuels, ethanol fuels, might be the things that actually take over EV, because we've had the EV conversation for a long time now.
Yeah.
And there's pros. but there seems to be quite a lot of cons still with it as well. And certainly for me, battery life is a big issue, which would stop me from getting an EV, certainly for the next few years anyway. Till an EV car can do what my diesel can do, I wouldn't be swapping it. And at the minute, they're about 300-400 miles off.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I did a couple of examples. I live in Leeds. When I do Brands Hatch, that's 240 miles. My dad's electric car can do 230, which is just painfully not quite that far, is it? Obviously, my diesel car will get me there. But I have to say, another example that you can see if you go and look at the grassroots of motorsport, which is karting, there's the Mach E class now, which is in amongst the CKC clubs and sort of cadet style clubs and stuff like that I've done before, Bambino karting. And it's quite entertaining racing. It's an electric go-kart at the end of the day. It sounds a bit weird, but the racing is there. It does enable people to actually go and get out there on circuits. So there are positives to it, and it probably will come to the floor a little bit harder in the next 5 to 10 years. But I do think that it's not the long-term solution.
Right, now, Jack, let's bring this full circle and come back to you because I want to know, other than the handball, of course, Men's and Women's Premier Handball League Live, what does 2023 on Live Sport now? And Jacko Racing, by the way, that's his page. You can watch it there too. But what does 2023 hold us for from a motorsport perspective for you?
Well, I'm hoping, I can't talk about the things that I haven't had confirmed, I suppose, but I'm hoping to be around the British GT area. Sort of, I can't really go into why too much, but I've got a lot of karting booked in at the Wilton Mill Kart Club, which is brilliant. Alpha Live have been fantastic with me since I started covering motorsport as a commentator. They gave me one of the first gigs that I ever did in motorsport was with them, and they've keep emailing me back, so that's nice. The Fun Cup as well, hoping to cover a few of their races, as well as I'm hoping Civic Cup, maybe they'll invite me back a bit here, there, and everywhere. But yeah, mainly a lot of obviously the handball, but the likes of the Wilton Mill Kart Club, and hopefully other sort of events and go-karting, as well as big track things. I've been in touch with Brands Hatch over the last week as well about covering some of their BRSCC commentary actually at the circuit. So if you're at Brands Hatch for certain BRSCC meetings or other things like that, you might also hear my dulcet tones as you describe them.
Give Jack away. Give him a wave in that comms box. Now, Jack, probably the most important question you'll be asked all year. Bonus question, this one. What's better, tea or coffee? There's only one.
I'll tell you what, I don't drink either. I saw that on your questions when you sent that through. I genuinely don't drink either.
I should know this because we go to a lot of sports halls together, don't we? And
yeah.
I've noticed I've never thought of it until you just suddenly said that. I've never seen you have a coffee in your hand.
Yeah, it's not that I'm against anything. It's not like I'm ethically against coffee or something like that. It's just the fact that I've never drank it before. And so I fuel up on Lucozade and stuff like that. That's what I end up going for. Basically, sugar. I'd rather do sugar than caffeine.
Fair enough. Jack, thank you so much for joining us. That's episode 7 of Drive Time. Don't forget episode 8 tomorrow, 7 p.m. across Live Sport Now on YouTube. That's the best place to watch it. Do comment as well. We can see the comments, so we want to hear from you. I hope you've enjoyed that, Jack. Thanks so much. Now, this is going to go out. We've recorded this, by the way, everybody. It's not live. We've recorded this. So by the time we've done this, we will have done the handball at the weekend. So I'll see you on Sunday. And for those watching, of course, when it does go out, wow, incredible games. Live Sport Now, make sure you go back and watch them. That's it. We'll see you soon. Hits. And the handball hits, that's coming up on Sunday, the 27th or something, whenever the next Sunday is. Whatever Sunday 29th, that's coming up. Make sure you watch it. Live Sport Now. All right, thanks, everybody. Thanks so much, Jack. Thanks again. Take care.